Hi, my name is Ella Kate Lawrence, and today I'll be informing you about Germany. I was not able to have two visitors, so here's the first. Now I will talk about my speech. Oddly enough, Germany has over 1,500 different types of sausages. This showcases their culinary diversity, and it also draws people in from other countries to come try their sausages. Germany is somewhat of a friend of the US. They are trade partners and also allies. They are the third largest foreign employer of the US. I have done extensive research on this topic, and I also speak a little bit of German. In this speech, I will inform you about the beautiful country Germany. First, I will talk about the biography and history. Next, I will discuss the culinary traditions and demographics of Germany. Then, I will go over the communication principles. Now that I have talked about my country, I will go over the biography and history. According to the BBC, British Broadcasting Service, Germany has approximately 83.6 million people in its country. Germany makes up about 1.01% of the world's population, which is a super drastic difference from the US. Germany's president. Frank-Walter Steinmeier is Germany's president. Steinmeier was elected as president in February of 2017. After being president for about 5 years, he was re-elected in 2022, showcasing continuity and consciousness. British Broadcasting Service, 2023. German hunting history. Early Germans, hundreds of thousands of years ago, were making elaborate hunting weapons with the resource that they had. Archaeologists found complete hunting weapons and sets dating back almost 38,000 years ago. These ranged from ivory sculptures made out of bird bones, and they also found a Venus figure carved from a woolly mammoth tusk. I am expat 2025. Now that I have talked about the biography and history, I will go over the cultural traditions and demographics. The gender norms for men back in the day. Back in the day, Germany was concentrated on power. They didn't care about wealth or status. They only wanted power. They wanted men that could fight. They wanted men with high-ranking military, and military success. If you were born into a family with a high rank in military, you were automatically respected. Encyclopedia Britannica, 2025. Gender norms for women back in the day. When men were being treated as they were worth such more than women didn't speak up. They didn't voice their opinions, and they kept to themselves being good housewives. Men would receive all the praise and admiration for something that was done, even if the wife had done something. Encyclopedia Britannica, 2025. The biggest ethnic group in Germany. The biggest ethnic group in Germany is, Germans. They make up 87% of the population. There are some other ethnic groups that you might find, such as Turkish, Polish, and Russian people. Out of all these ethnic groups, Turkish people make up the second largest in Germany. You would think that Russians might make up the second largest just because Russia is such a common second ethnicity for other countries, but actually Turkish people make up more. Russians only make up about 3 million of the 87%. Encyclopedia Britannica, 2025. Now that I have talked about the cultural traditions, I will talk about the demographics of Germany. When the individualistic culture of Germany. When it comes to German culture, they are very individualistic. They often praise people, mostly men, who are strong and able to serve the country. Back in the day, if you weren't self-reliant and you weren't strong, you were looked over. They only wanted people with high ranks and people who could fight to make the country bigger and better. Encyclopedia Britannica, 2025. The low context culture of Germany. Germany is a very low context culture. When you think of America, Americans usually like to make small talk and usually like to wave at each other, smile at each other, especially when you pass by neighbors. Germans don't do that. It might be even considered rude to go up to a German and start making small talk and talk about your life. You wouldn't go up to a German and say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" and then talk about your plans for the day. That would be considered rude. Have fun with history, 2023. Nonverbal communications that differ from the US. Germans are very reserved. They like their silence and their space. Germans prefer to stand farther away from each other than Americans do. People in the US are more comfortable sitting next to each other and standing next to each other. Germans don't feel the need to do that. I am expat 2025. Now that I have talked about the cultural traditions of Germany, I will wrap things up with my conclusion. In this speech, I informed you about Germany. First, I talked about the biography and the history of Germany. Next, I went over the cultural traditions of Germany. Third, I went over the communication principles. Now, when you go to Germany, don't be surprised when you see more old women than you do men. That's because they tend to live longer than men in Germany. Why? Well, all I really have to say is that men can be a little spontaneous. British Broadcasting Service 2023. Thank you all for listening to my speech.